Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredible life, the hardcore methodology, and the massive legacy of a man whose impact on Islamic scholarship is just absolutely monumental. We're talking about Abdullah ibn Abbas. We'll be walking through how this single individual built the whole foundational structure of early Islamic interpretation, transforming himself into what history remembers as the ink of the Ummah. All right, let's get right into it. 13 years old. Seriously, he was only 13 when the Prophet Muhammad passed away. Just think about that for a second. Yet despite being a literal kid at that critical historical moment, he was granted this miracle of wisdom that transformed him into the absolute foremost interpreter of the Quran. It's a paradox that completely defies ordinary logic, right? A man so brilliant, so vast in his intellectual depth, that his peers literally called him an entire ocean contained within a single human soul. So how exactly did this happen? Let's take a look.
Part 1. Early Life and the Blessing.
Okay, to understand this incredible trajectory, we have to rewind to the very beginning. Born 3 years before the Hijrah in the valley of Shib Abi Talib, Abdullah was actually a child of the Prophet's own household, his paternal cousin. And his life was marked for greatness from his literal first breath. According to historical texts, right after he was born, he was brought to the Prophet, who placed a bit of his own saliva on the infant's palate before the baby even began to suckle. It was this profound physical and spiritual connection right from day one. Then, as a young boy, Abdullah served the messenger of Allah basically like a shadow. He was constantly by his side, running to fetch his water for wudu, standing right behind him during prayers, just soaking in absolutely every word. And it was during one of these intimate moments that the Prophet drew the young boy close, patted him on the shoulder, and made this huge, pivotal prayer. He said, "O Allah, grant him deep understanding of the faith and teach him the interpretation of the book." That supplication, it essentially opened the floodgates of his understanding. Which brings us to part 2, the pursuit of knowledge. Now, this is absolutely crucial. When the Prophet passed away, the teenage Abdullah didn't just sit back and rely on that amazing blessing or his noble family tree. No way. He realized instantly that the Prophet's knowledge was now scattered among the surviving companions, and it was a treasure that had to be actively hunted down. He knew that knowledge is sought. It doesn't just magically come to you. So get this, he would actually go to the homes of senior companions during the blistering afternoon heat. But out of this immense respect, he refused to knock and disturb their rest. Instead, he would spread his cloak in the dirt street outside their doors, sitting there patiently while the harsh desert wind blew dust all over him. He'd just wait there for the companion to wake up so he could ask them about a single hadith. I mean, imagine that level of grit and dedication. And he wasn't just dedicated, he was incredibly rigorous. He wouldn't just take one person's word on a complex issue. The sources actually note that he would sometimes consult as many as 30 different companions of the Prophet just to verify a single matter. 30. To put that into perspective, he subjected everything he heard to intense scrutiny, cross-checking reports to ensure absolute airtight accuracy before he ever passed it on. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how he viewed his own success. When people later asked him how he managed to attain such an unprecedented status in Islamic scholarship, he didn't brag about his intellect or his family connections. He simply replied with this quote, "By a questioning tongue and a sensible heart." That's it. He asked the right questions and he kept a mind and heart ready to actually comprehend and retain the answers.
Moving on to Part 3, the Scholar of the Nation.
So naturally, this relentless pursuit of knowledge led to his rise as a totally unparalleled authority. His peers, the very companions he used to wait outside in the dust for, began to recognize his unmatched expertise. They actually bestowed specific titles on him that reflected their deep reverence. They called him Habra al-Ummah, which translates to the scholar or the learned man of the nation. They also called him al-Bahr, the sea. It's a beautiful metaphor for the vast, deep, and just seemingly endless ocean of his knowledge. His authority was so deeply respected that Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab would famously invite this brilliant youth to sit in the highest consultative council. Now, this was a council normally strictly reserved for the venerated, older veterans of the Battle of Badr. And as you might expect, some of the elders initially questioned this. They were like, "Why do you let this young man join us when we have sons his exact age?" Well, Caliph Omar decided to prove the young man's worth to the elders right then and there. Omar asked the council to interpret Surah An-Nas, the chapter that begins, "When comes the help of Allah and the conquest." The elders gave a pretty literal interpretation, saying it means we should praise Allah and seek forgiveness when we achieve victory. Totally logical. But Ibn Abbas, he saw a much deeper layer.
He stated that the verse was actually a hidden sign from Allah, indicating the prophet's approaching death. His earthly mission was complete. Caliph Umar publicly agreed, and man, that left those veteran elders in absolute awe of this young guy's profound insight.
As he grew older, his home essentially morphed into the very first university of the Islamic world. His teaching circles had this massive, massive scope. He was so incredibly organized that he structured his classes by day, so dedicating specific days entirely to tafsir, other days to fiqh, to poetry, to pre-Islamic history. The crowds of students rushing to his house were so gigantic that they literally blocked the streets of Medina. He actually had to manage them in shifts just to get everyone in.
All right, part 4, the voice of reason. But listen, Abdullah ibn Abbas wasn't just a man of books and classrooms. When the time came, he was a leader of decisive action. Under Caliph Ali, he served as the governor of Basra, navigating some of the most turbulent, dangerous political waters in early Islamic history. And that brings us to one of the most legendary moments of his entire life, facing down 20,000 heavily armored Kharijite rebels. We're talking about soldiers who had broken away, heavily armed, highly zealous, and absolutely ready for war. And what did Ibn Abbas do? He didn't bring an army to meet them. He brought the light of reason. He literally walked right into their camp to debate them, using his peerless knowledge of the Quran and the Prophet's biography.
This moment just brilliantly showcases his legal mind. The rebels had 3 main grievances against Caliph Ali, and Ibn Abbas just systematically dismantled them one by one. First, they claimed human arbitration was a sin. So Ibn Abbas quoted a Quranic verse showing that Allah actually permits men to judge in disputes, even in something as common as marital issues. Second, they were furious that Ali dropped his title of caliph during negotiations. Ibn Abbas calmly reminded them that the Prophet himself dropped his title of messenger during the Treaty of Hudaybiyah just to secure peace. And third, they wanted the spoils of war from the Battle of the Camel. Ibn Abbas pointed out that the Prophet's widow, Aisha, was on the opposing side, and asked them straight up, "Will you take your own mother as a captive?" Through this absolutely brilliant, airtight logic, he convinced thousands of those rebels to abandon their revolt and return to unity. It's just a masterclass in debate.
And finally, part 5, the final ink.
This brings us to the final chapter of his remarkable life. In his later years, amid all the shifting political tides, he actually stepped back from politics, settling in the mountainous city of Taif. And sadly, it was here that he eventually lost his eyesight. But, as the historical sources beautifully point out, while his physical eyes failed him, his inner vision remained incredibly sharp. He didn't stop. He continued to dictate, to teach, and to guide the Muslim Ummah. His memory was an absolute fortress, allowing him to remain this powerful lighthouse of knowledge, even in physical darkness. Abdullah ibn Abbas passed away in Taif at the age of 71. His funeral was attended by the remaining giants of the companions, who deeply mourned the loss of the pious of this nation. By dedicating his entire life to the transmission of Hadith and the precise interpretation of the Quran, he literally laid the intellectual backbone of Islamic scholarship that is still relied upon today. He was truly the ink of the Ummah, a man who proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that lasting authority doesn't come from a sword. It comes from a questioning tongue, a sensible heart, and the relentless, sometimes dusty pursuit of truth. So, my question to you at the end of this explainer is this. If true nobility is found in that pursuit of truth, how will you seek knowledge today? Thanks so much for watching, and as always, keep learning.